And Lynn, have you got the timer pinned?
I'm
Just
ready.
double checking. Great, bless you. All right. Lynn is a presentation mastery level 4, and she's doing a speech called The Incident. It's 8 to 10 minutes. So, Madam Timer, do you want to show what that's going to look like?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. At 8 minutes, you will see the green. At 9, you will see the yellow. And at 10 minutes, you will see red. If at any time you go over 10 minutes or 10 minutes and 30 seconds, you will see this. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Camille. Lynn's working from the engaging humor path on this speech, level 3 elective, connect with storytelling. Lin Van Gelder is a member of 3 clubs and has been a Toastmaster for a dozen years. Since retiring from Boeing, where she worked in the commercial satellite area, Lin has traveled, volunteered, pursued hobbies and interests, and kept a big promise to herself: to learn how to play the ukulele. Lin lives in Torrance with her husband and 2 cats. She is a founding member of Story Masters. Lin's speech tonight is a personal story, told to capture a moment in time, especially for her sister's kids. This is a true family story that Lin hopes you enjoy. Please welcome Lin Van Gelder with The Incident.
Thank you so much, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. I will keep it concise so we can pivot to the evaluations. And although the story starts out seriously, please understand I tell it to my sister's kids because, well, you'll see. The story is about my mother, and she passed away on this day in 1992. I did not think I could live one day without her, and here it is 29 years later, which I've learned a lesson that grief never ends, but we go on with it. And it took me until now at this age to understand that she was grieving. She was really grieving when this incident happened. It had been a really rough fall and winter that year. It was 1959. She was pregnant with her second child, my little sister Deb. And in addition to the physical demands of pregnancy, she was physically and emotionally caring for her mother, who was only 54 but was dying from Parkinson's disease that fall and winter. She had me. I was 5 years old, turning 6 during this time, and my dad and her father, and she had responsibilities for everything that went on in the household, caring for her mother and caring for her father, who had emphysema, and taking care of my father, who was laid off from work, which was typical. He was a construction worker, a carpenter, and in the winter in Buffalo, there wasn't a lot of construction work that went on. This was the 1950s. The family had moved to the suburbs, my grandparents, my parents, and myself, to a tract home with lots of similar other houses and similar families like ours. It was a village. It had a horse path. And back in those days, it was a simpler time. We still had people that delivered to the home. We had a milkman, and in addition to the mailman, and there was a fresh vegetable cart that came by regularly. What I really remember is how different to live where there were such distinct and radical changes of seasons like there were in winters back then. Winters in Buffalo were notoriously miserable. Fall was beautiful with its changing colors, but winter? I don't think I ever really found anything to love about winter. And throughout that fall and winter, as mom got bigger with a growing baby and caring for her mother, it got hard. She was grieving in advance of her mother passing. There was no hospice care or assistance for families back then in 1959 and 1960. From what I recall, my mother did it all herself. She didn't complain, she just did what she needed to do, but she grieved quite a bit, and I could tell she was so So sad. And my grandfather was no help, but whatever. All the adults were cigarette smokers. They were all coughing all the time. It was what life was like back then. And it wasn't long after that sad Christmas and sad New Year's that my grandmother was getting ready to pass into her next experience. And she started to say her goodbyes to her friends. She told her best friend, "Don't worry, we'll be together soon." And they were. She called my mother in and she said, "Look, don't be upset, but I'm not going to live to see your baby." Like that wouldn't upset you to hear. But she said, "Look, I already see her. You're going to have another little girl. She's going to be like Lynn, except she's going to have brown eyes like me instead of blue eyes like Lynn." And in February, when mom had her baby, that prediction came true. She gave birth to a beautiful, perfect, gorgeous, brown-eyed doll. So you see, she'd been through a lot that fall and winter. Dad laid off from work, Grandpa hospitalized with emphysema, Grandma hospitalized finally and slipped into a coma as she had gone into labor, and Grandma died without ever regaining consciousness. And it was in April, from what I recall. It was a couple of months of intense grieving and intense crying. And every time mom cried, the baby cried and needed attention. So I am sure that postpartum depression and grief all added to her exhaustion when this happened. So it was April, or maybe it was May, and the milkman came to the door. He greeted Mom with a friendly hello and said, "Oh, I see you've had your baby." And Mom said, "Yes, I have a new baby girl. Would you like to see her?" Well, of course he said yes. And she invited him to wait in the kitchen while she went into the bedroom to get the baby. And she went back into the bedroom, and we don't know what came over her in that moment. We really don't know. She looked at her sleeping baby. She looked around the room. Finally, she covered the bundle she put in the bassinet with a blanket and wheeled it out into the kitchen. And she let the milkman pull back the blanket, where he gasped and almost had a heart attack because instead of seeing a beautiful little baby, Mom had taken my big stuffed chimpanzee and put him in the bassinet and wheeled him into the kitchen. And Mom laughed. She laughed and laughed. She laughed like she hadn't laughed in a year while the milkman had to sit down and have some water. Then she went back and got the baby for real this time. And in a little while, he left to resume his route. She laughed away a year of pain. She brought herself back to life after that. I watched my mother perform alchemy. She transmuted her pain into laughter. It didn't make it hurt any less, and it didn't stop the grieving. But that laughter, it just acknowledges all the mystery and absurdity that is life. We never have all the answers. We can't always figure out why, but maybe we can find some humor in it. She's been gone for many years, but that legacy remains in my heart. Madam Toastmaster.